how do you view Israel's new plan, and how significant is this shift in Israel's military strategy from raid-based operations to territorial occupations in terms of Gaza's long-term future?
In the beginning, that there is a division within the security military establishment of Israel, and the resolution of the small military cabinet, and with the critics or the criticism of entering a larger scale war adopted by the small cabinet. It is only for two reasons. Firstly, Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to move forward or to evade himself forward by the resumption of the war. And Trump's visit next week into the region. So the other matters, there are the statements of the senior military chiefs, whether they are sitting or former, by the chief of staff and the minister of defense, that the war is useless if you reach to the detainees' release. And they all agree upon that Netanyahu is taking us to the unknown. If Netanyahu wants to continue the war that way, he should have put real outlines and outputs of this war. If you are going to expand the crossings, and even the internal or the security internal vision within Israel, talking about that Netanyahu is taking them to the unknown. Secondly, establishing useless crossings as stayed more than 2 years without getting the captives released. And the media reporters cited that the expansion of the circle would pose a real threat of the detainees. This is a story inside Israel. So why Netanyahu has taken the decision today, as he wants to reach a solution before the visit of Trump. He wants to disarm Hamas and to do whatever he likes in the Gaza Strip. As this matter of army is rejected by Hamas. So the last chip of bargain at Hamas is the captives. And that way Netanyahu wouldn't be able to reach his detainees unless by negotiation through the
Mr. Darawy, but Israel, Israel says that the plan is part of its efforts to pressure Hamas into releasing the remaining detainees. And also reports suggested that they would be postponing this move until Trump's make his Middle East tour. What do you have on that?
I think this is already being proposed by Netanyahu personally, by reaching Netanyahu. And the US administration refused to go in line or in the same page with Netanyahu. Therefore, Trump went into another direction by maintaining the relations with Tehran without launching a war or a direct confrontation with Iran. This affects Netanyahu inside at the opposition as long with the families of detainees. So the sites are directed by the end of this week, if the war is going to end in full, and the announcement of a deal announced by Donald Trump in the Middle East visit, or to have a temporary halt of the war to open the door of delivering the aid, as this would refute the claims inside America, accusing him by supporting Israel. This matter that would provoke the American people against his administration, and this one is linked to two things. Firstly, how for the Arab leaders to react, and the second point that Trump wants to reconcile with the Abraham Accord started by Trump in his first term. And we've seen the Saudi Arabia cited that on the agenda of the meeting to talk about its relations with Israel, as long as the matter is going that way. So Trump should stop the way before Netanyahu, unless there is a clear vision to crystallize this matter and to execute the matter of the hostages. Or
actually,
we are talking about 10 days, less or more, but for Benjamin Netanyahu to lay down a full plan for Trump to convince either firstly to end the deal of hostages, or even not entering Gaza in that way, in that time before Trump's visit. And this would score the fifth invasion of Gaza Strip. We're talking about or Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about the entering of his arm in different or domination pivots.
Mr. Darawy, let me here explain. Now, there are reports that suggested that Israel would postpone this move until the Middle East visit of Mr. Trump. And regarding the issue of delivering aid, already Israel said that it wants to distribute the aid, or some suggestions were made about this and rejected by the US defense minister. But anyway, the UN and the aid groups have condemned the plan as a violation of humanitarian principles. So in light of the recent World Court hearings, could this lead to legal consequences for Israel under the international law?
Yes, what is doing Israel to trying to distribute aid, and in the meantime killing the Palestinians, of course this violates the humanitarian international law. And I think the civil society has said this many times, and we've seen the ICC talked about this matter. Leaders of the Israeli army accusing them that they are using the starvation as weapon in dominating the enclave. Unfortunately, we've seen hostages at Hamas just are suffering of such a policy. Therefore, the international community says the Israel don't care as much with the detainees. And this is also said by Ehud Olmert and all the former prime ministers talked about this matter explicitly, and even the families of the detainees. So Benjamin Netanyahu wishes only to become a prime minister at the end of the legal tenure of the Knesset and to wait for another tenure and term through which he can be nominated as a prime minister again. Yesterday, we were celebrated of the World Day of Journalism. We're talking about the food of the Gaza Strip. We have around 215 fell down of journalists during this war, and we have more than 4,000 injured, and 45 of journalists are detained by the Israeli concentration. All this violates the international community. The process of systematic displacement is violating the international laws, and there is no infrastructure in the enclave. Even the Israelis themselves, along with the Israeli media, talk about that Israel isn't capable of, but should have a deal, and from the Israeli side proclaiming if the detainees were released, Netanyahu's government will be fallen and will have no excuses for launching a war, as the Gaza Strip is fully destructed, but there are some remnant of the resistance is still there. But the real problem is that Benjamin Netanyahu, if he ends this war, its coalition will be fallen and collapsed. In that way, Netanyahu wants to proceed this matter and to continue to intensify the war. By the way, the U.S. administration did this and realized, in fact, that Netanyahu also pursued for his personal interest, not the interest of his people. And the last matter that is talking about Yehuda and Samira, which is that doctrine within the Jewish nation, and the change of the Israeli judges that was based off the recruitment of the Haredim soldiers into their army. So the U.S. administration even rejected this idea, as considering Israel is one of the Muslim dominant democracies in the world that shouldn't be allowed